everybody. Welcome to the Sustainable Minds session today. I hope you had a great start during our conference in the morning with a lot of information already shared. GSTC, of course, a lot of types of tourism here. We are especially joining and coming together for the MICE sector. My name is Esra. I'm MICE Director for the Türkiye Tourism Promotion and Development Agency. You are all part of the MICE industry. We have a conference, an international conference, a global sustainable conference, participants joining from all around the world to share knowledge and share insights and experience about the whole industry. And joining and attending this conference is the same value of as the operational part of the MICE industry, but you are the people who are striving it actually. You are the people we are want to achieve to attend to our conferences and events, festivals, incentives all around the world. And of course there is a side to prepare and let you experience the best events and the best experiences during these business travels, how we call them as well. And with the sector changing, with the world changing, of course, the word sustainability is a really important topic. As said, as international travel is returning from all around the world, it's a really important mission for everybody to achieve sustainable events for the sector, as an industry, but as well as for the participant and the individual attending these events to experience it. So we have a great selection of panelists today joining us, each from different sectors, different sector professionals and in their own fields. A great opportunity to hear and listen for their journey on the way to more sustainability in all their own visions, experiences, perspectives. So first I want to introduce Ms. Sandra Wilking, Deputy Director from the Berlin Convention Office, Olivia Ruggles-Brise, Vice President Sustainability from BCD Travel, Brennan, Director for Trust Carbon, and Thomas Hennion, Operational Director of Transform SOCOTEC. So we will go a little bit more into detail what all these different panelists do in sustainability. I will just a little bit tell you a little bit more about Türkiye as well, since we are here, since we are really involved with GSTC as well, and a little bit on the side of MICE, what we did during this process and during this road, as also said in the morning, which is still evolving and still every day with the experiences and the challenges structuring itself. Türkiye was always a strong and leading destination in the MICE sector, generally worldwide, and always keen to be a sustainable destination in MICE, also with already the ground and the visibility and nature, as well as with the vision of sustainability in the MICE sector. We as Türkiye Tourism Promotion Development Agency are of course responsible for the whole country and all 81 regions, but also our CVBs like the Istanbul Convention Bureau as well as the Antalya Convention Bureau are really, really keen for international partnerships, for different kind of opportunities to make the destination a more sustainable destination. We became the first destination partner of ICA from the MICE sector, the conference sector, ICA International Conference and Congress Association, and are organizing the ICA AC Forum this year in June. Why I'm telling this is all vinyls, all printed material during the GSTC conference will be recycled and redone as giveaway bags for the participants at the ICA AC Forum. So you see, there are little things you can do, but there are also big things you can do. There's different kind of outlines which are all important. So going into the panel a little bit, giving a little bit information about Turkey, but now listening to our panelists also with different presentations, and then we can talk a little bit more in detail what everybody is doing. So first we will listen to Sandra, as at Berlin Convention Tourism Office. Berlin is important MICE destinations, and she will tell us a little bit more what they are doing and what their strategy is.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, with over 9 million participants every year, Berlin is one of the most important MICE destinations worldwide. So, on the one hand, 9 million participants mean an incredible number of positive effects. They promote the economy, the science, cooperations at all. They are bridge builders between cultures, and they help, I strongly believe it, to keep peace in the world. On the other hand, it also means 9 million trips, overnight stays, meals, transportation, equipment, etc. In short, a huge amount of resources and emissions. So there are people who say the most sustainable trip is the one that doesn't happen. But, and take it as an excuse to carry on exactly as before. We never wanted to join this mindset. Since 2017, we at the Convention Bureau of Visit Berlin have been working intensively on the question of how we can make events more sustainable and ensure that our industry and the sector are reliable and positioned for the future. Our vision, I don't forget, to make Berlin one of the most sustainable MICE destinations in the world. And now I would like to introduce you to the path we have taken until now. We quickly recognized that we as a CBB, funded and commissioned by the Senate of Berlin, and as an official representative, when it comes to MICE, have a special role, and that we can use this role very good to accompany our stakeholders and empower them for the sustainable transformation. On the one hand, we are there to help event planners with advice, network, and contacts. On the other hand, we are closely networked with all the key players, the hotel industry, the event suppliers in Berlin, and also the political sphere. What if everyone would work together to transform the industry and the MICE sector? We, in our role, could be an active driver, a companion, and enabler, and our values in doing so: transparency, credibility, and sustainable attitude. In 2018, we created the Sustainable Meetings Berlin initiative. With it, we addressed the supplier side and the demand side at the same time. Let's look at first on the supplier side and our offer for Berlin-based companies, the Sustainable Partner Program. The centerpiece of our program is the management system and the certification. And because to implement a management system is such a challenging task, we offer companies as much support as possible. For example, through consulting one-on-one with the experts from the sustainable field, and workshops, online learnings, and networking events to promote knowledge and exchange. The community is growing, so we are thankful for that, and more than 50 companies from all segments are there for our meetups regularly. The support program, I have to say that because this was on another panel, the topic, is funded by the Senate of Berlin, and is free of charge for the companies. The Sustainable Partner Certification is a process-oriented sustainability management system specifically developed with and for the event industry. It's awarded following an external audit based on a catalog of 65 criteria. And we are very proud that the certification body is now GSTC recognized. There are 9 sector-specific criteria sets. That means individually tailored criteria for each segment of the industry. You can become a starter light. This is the entry level with a reduced number of criteria, or a starter, or an advanced performer, high performer, and even a leader. A leader should have an overall performance between 71 and 100%. To make the audit performance visible, each company, I'm sorry, that is the wrong presentation. That's the old one. Okay, but there we are. Yeah, now I'm a little bit. There's 9 sector-specific criteria sets. That's already I said. To make the audit performance visible, each company receives an entry in the Meeting Guide Berlin, our online platform for customers. Once a provider has successfully passed the audit, the performance is shown on the platform. Customers can search and filter for sustainable providers and compare the company's performance. So these were our activities for the Berlin players. Let's now have a look at the customer side. And now, yeah. As I said before, on our website we provide transparent and comparable overview of the sustainable partners. In addition to that, we created further services for event planners to inform, inspire, and activate them. We offer a toolkit for sustainable event planning, personal consultancy, and even financial support. A popular planning tool are the sustainable event guidelines. The guidelines cover all areas of action and planning and offer, of course, concrete measures. It's a kind of checklist with practical ideas and actions. The guidelines were also the basis for the development of the sustainability funding in Berlin, in the Berlin Congress Fund, the 10 million euro fund, and its sustainability promotion. A good example of how cities can also create, how crisis can also create opportunities. It was part of the so-called Restart program to support the event industry in Berlin during the pandemic. So we launched it in 2021. In addition to a basic funding, of 25, can you hear me? I have some, yeah, perfect. So, in addition to a basic funding of 25 euros per person per day, organizers can receive 25 euros per person per day if they planned it according to the criteria of the Sustainable Event Scorecard. So around 30% of all funded events are now proven and organized in a sustainable way. So, and in our team, the demand of consultings has increased significantly after the introduction of the funding, and our sustainable partners as well. They feel an increase in inquiries. So that's it's a win-win situation for everyone. Unfortunately, it's an older presentation, so I had something to add. Also, our team uses the Sustainable Event Score guidelines for organizing and planning our own events. For example, the festival which we organized the 3rd time this year, according to the guidelines. With the festival, the Mice and Travel Festival, we attract 800 experts from the event and travel industry from Germany, Europe, and the world. This year, we intend to certify the festival according to ISO 20121. In doing so, we want to implement the festival as a role model that will inspire customers and partners alike. Festival enables us to achieve our vision by motivating customers and partners to act sustainably. So now I have to come to an end, I see that. What's my conclusion? So sustainable event planning is possible, but it's important to engage everyone involved in the success of events. We can achieve this through knowledge building and incentives, dialogue and passion. And therefore, I'm very pleased that the GSTC is now also focusing on MICE tourism and, of course, about your interest in it. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for explaining the different actions under the umbrella of Sustainable Meetings Berlin, strengthening both the supplier as well as the customer side is an important point as well as said before. I think we will have more questions later on. Just to add, if you have any questions, please you can use Slido and add the questions for the Q&A session. Next, we have Olivia Ruggles-Brise, Vice President of Sustainability for BCD Travel, who will tell us a little bit more from the travel agency side and how they are approaching topic of sustainability.
Right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I work for BCD Travel. We're a travel management company, so we manage corporate travel, but we have a significant meeting and events division. So it's great to be here to talk to you about some of our experiences in that. We service over 700 customers who are corporate companies, so anything from pharmaceuticals to consultancies and many other types of business. When I tried to find out how many events we plan a year, nobody was able to tell me because it was so many. So we organise a lot of events on behalf of our customers. These tend to be what we call strategic meetings, so sales meetings, internal team meetings, big product launches, that kind of thing. So the whole kind of range of events. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit of the insights that we have from our customers. So from the demand side. So so what are we hearing? What are we hearing from them, and what have we learned? There's a really broad mix of maturity, so interest in sustainability and knowledge of sustainability amongst the people we work with. And what's interesting is that some of the companies themselves have really robust sustainability plans and targets. Some of them even have net zero goals. But the extent to which that filters down to the event teams and the event planning side is sometimes quite limited. So we often find that people are asking, where do we start? How do we get going on this thing called sustainability? Even if their company makes money out of giving sustainability advisory to others. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. But once we get into things, we start talking to them. One of the biggest challenges we come across is the lack of standards, and this is why GSTC are addressing this. There are lots of different standards across the meetings and events industry, also accommodation. Most of our events are hosted within hotels, so there's a very close link to the accommodation side of things. But quite often this lack of standards, this lack of how do we know what is sustainable, can be a bit of a barrier to even getting them off the ground. Similarly with data, well, what's going to be the impact of this? How are we going to measure it? And without methodologies and knowing indeed how to collect some of the data, that again can be a reason that we hear for sort of not wanting to do things. So we try and work with our customers to solve these problems, and as I'll talk about in a bit, sort of starting step by step. But the one thing that everybody knows about and wants to do is calculate their carbon footprint. Even if they don't really know how they're going to do it, they want a carbon calculator. There are many available, and that's often the kind of entry activity is to say, okay, well then let's use a carbon calculator to start playing around with some of the numbers that we do have. But what's really clear is that they expect us as the organisers, the planners, to tell them what to do. There's a real need for hand-holding. These are busy people, they have many different priorities, and it's a complicated activity to run a sustainable event, and they really want us to help them. So I'm going to share with you in a minute some of the tools that we've developed to do that. But first of all, I don't know how clearly you can see this, but we asked them, how will sustainability impact your meetings and event strategy? And just under 1 in 10, 12% said it's not. So we're not interested, come back and talk to us about that another time. And then within the rest, there was a real range, but carbon is still the primary driving factor. And that leads back to the fact that these are corporates that probably have a carbon goal somewhere, and how events are contributing to that can be one of the drivers for them addressing sustainability. So carbon footprint is really key, and then after that you get into things like waste management, that kind of thing. The social side is not really talked about very much, and it's something that I think I will take away from even the sessions that we've heard this morning, kind of really driving through the possibility for positive social impact. So they come to us for advice. What do we tell them? Well, we say, well, first of all, if you want to put in a sustainable event strategy, there's kind of 4 things we suggest you look at in this order. The first is travel better. So look at where you are hosting your event, and is it the most efficient from a transport perspective, fly versus rail, who are your delegates that are coming, and where can you do it? And then, and perhaps we can talk about this later, there's a whole series of sort of actions you can take in order to minimise the carbon emissions of your flights, if that's what you have to do. The second is meet better, so by that we mean put in place some of the actions around reducing the impact on site, so from the venue that you choose, to how you deal with waste, the merchandise you give out or preferably don't give out, and then food waste, that kind of thing. And then the third is really engaging with suppliers and putting in place some criteria to make sure that you at least are doing some basic due diligence on your suppliers, if not more. And then finally, offsetting is something we talk to some of our customers about, and I won't go into that in any great detail now, but we can talk about that later if anyone's interested. I think there's sort of 2 key things I want to say, and I can see I'm being waved at from the back. 2 key things I want to say is, first of all, what we try to do is embed sustainability in the conversations from the beginning and in the processes that are already there. It's much more efficient and much more effective if you start weaving sustainability in rather than imposing a whole new process or a whole new system of talking. And kind of what I mean by that is we have a toolbox of things we use in order to work with our customers. I was going to pick on a couple of them here. So we have a venue scorecard. We have a whole venue sourcing portal that our customers can use, and we've built into that sustainability criteria. So the way we do it actually is there's a whole list of criteria, and the customers can choose the 10 that are most important to them. They build that into their search, and then when the venues are brought up, all kinds of different criteria are included, and sustainability is part of that. So it's kind of really embedded into their decision making rather than sort of forcing them into an either or situation. We also have a checklist, a little bit like colleagues from Berlin. And again, that's around where do you need to start talking about sustainability within the process. But what we also have is sort of against each item, we give some recommendations on sort of what good looks like, but then how you build it into a contract. So when we're kind of commissioning these events, organising these events, a lot of it comes down to the contracts with suppliers, so how can you start working sustainability into the contract? And then the last one I want to talk about is the maturity model. So as part of our general work with our customers, we help them understand where they are on in their strategic meetings journey, and within that we've embedded sustainability as well. So they can benchmark themselves against other customers essentially, to see where they are in the journey and to see what are the kind of actions they should be taking next in order to move further on the journey. So that's just a few insights into how we work with our customers. Really, it's all about understanding their needs, taking small steps, and then eventually showing them the positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia. There is the thing where to start. It's a huge and complex topic, and it's a new topic. And yeah, the knowledge, the data, and that will bring us directly to our next panelists, which are a little bit more on the data side and technology side. Brennan, Director from Trust Carbon.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kit Aspen. You have my old name, but not to worry. So I'm the founder at Trust Carbon, and yeah, today going to be talking a little bit about kind of the data unknowns within MICE. So in terms of who we are, we're a sustainability company, very focused on data. Many of you won't have heard of us, but our data is used in $55 billion of annual travel spend. And we do everything from indexes on sustainability, carbon data for most methodologies, vendor intelligence, lots of enrichment. And then how that flows through is lots of companies just pull out our data. We also have calculators for enterprises, engagement solution for enterprises, and then what we're going to talk about just down here is Thrust Events. So this is a new product we launched about 2 months ago to help the mice industry calculate their emissions in more detail. So far, around 20,000 annual events are being set up to go through it, which is terrific. And in terms of what those events look like, it's useful to remember that the vast majority of the events industry is actually small to medium events. In fact, 50% of events are roughly 50 people or under. So we normally think of events and our mind immediately goes to something like the GSDC conference, but actually much of the market's on this side. And so the difficulties are almost completely inverse. At a small event, you often know exactly how people have travelled to the event because you can talk to them. On the other side, though, you often have much less planner time per event. As Olivia said, TMCs do so many events that it's hard to even know how many they do. Our largest client using our products did 46,000 events in 2019. So truly huge amounts, and so the average planner can be organising 5-10 events a day. It also means there's less customization of vendor services. If you ask for local food sourcing and you're doing an event at a hotel for 40 people in a meeting room, you'll get offered menu A or menu B. When you're organising a large event, you get to talk to the caterers, you get to actually say what food you want sourced. And finally, in terms of accessing that vendor data, again, smaller events struggle to get great quality data because often it's not available. It can just be a meeting room in a small boutique hotel. They haven't calculated their emissions before. It's hard to get hold of that data. Large events, we calculated the footprint for the Global Business Travel Association's annual conference, which was in San Diego, and huge convention center. And the convention center was literally able to take an electricity meter reading at the start of the event and at the end of the event, so they can say to the nearest kilowatt what their electricity usage was for the event. So incredible access to vendor data. And so you end up with interesting data gaps on both sides. On large events, knowing exactly how someone's traveled to an event, knowing what the average person does, is very difficult. Small events you might have that, but then you're struggling for the actual vendors of your events for that data. So in terms of how we approach things, we're a sustainability platform. We try and take in as many data points as possible and then send them out. We're not a certification company, but we aim to kind of be a platform so that the data can be aggregated, so it can be given to the experts in certification, and really help people understand their emissions, understand the easiest wins to being more sustainable, and ultimately set themselves on that journey to being sustainable. It's probably not possible overnight to go to be a net zero event, but over a 10, 15, 20-year period, how do you go to being net zero? And gradually getting there is incredibly important. So I'm ultimately up here to talk about the kind of gaps in data. I think one thing that's worth saying is a lot of people think that they can't get hold of all their data for mice, and therefore give up and say they shouldn't calculate it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The most important thing is to be honest, try and calculate as much as you can, use averages where they're available, and if it's not available, say it in your reporting. Say, we weren't able to calculate this thing. Next year, we really hope to be able to get this data. So first mile, not much data on first mile. This is how you get to your main travel mode, so your flight, for example. It changes so much everywhere around the world. Last mile, again, how do people get from airports into city centres? Completely different. In the US, not as much public transport. In Europe, lots of public transport. Complete average travellers for large events where they don't know anything about their travellers. Indirect travellers, if you know everyone's come here from wherever you've come from, how do we know what percentage of you flew direct and what percentage flew indirect? And then venue averages when they're not hotels, there's great data when there's hotels, exhibitor averages, and then more average behaviour as well. And this stuff is important. I don't want to say we should be using averages because hopefully we can get hold of better data, but the reality is often we can't. So many of these areas we're actually researching with Informer Group. I'm running out of time, so maybe during the questions we can give some of the insights we're already finding. But really interesting stuff here. And then finally, we often get asked about some of the grey areas of should we include food and beverage emissions, should you include attendee travel? The argument for food and beverage is that people have to eat anyway, so why should it be the organizer's responsibility? Ultimately, it ignores the event's choice over the meals, and that's incredibly important. But then there's the grey area of if an event is really sustainable and your average meal isn't sustainable, does the event get to argue for a carbon saving? An interesting grey area, I'd argue no. And then attendee travel, same kind of idea. Should that be part of the event's footprint? I think as an industry, we've fortunately moved towards putting it under Scope 3 downstream emissions, so it is reported by the event. But certainly last year, that question came up an awful lot around should the event be responsible for their attendee emissions? And again, it reflects the organizer's responsibility and where they place their event. Remaining difficulties include the breadth of footprint types. Almost every large event has something that's completely unique to it. Most methodologies don't use usable units. So, for example, the DEFRA methodology is probably one of the most well-known. But if you want to calculate all the t-shirts that you've given away, you need to know the weight of all those t-shirts. Well, most people don't buy t-shirts in weight. They buy them as 1,000 t-shirts. So working out how you convert things into usable units is incredibly important. And then there are still no clear disclosure rules in the same way that corporates have disclosure rules such as CDP. And that's hopefully changing, hopefully something that GSTC is going to be hugely involved in with its criteria, but really important for getting better data there. And then a little bit on us, Trust Events, yeah, we're a platform for bringing in data. Ask me about it later if you have any interest, but I'm running out of time, so that's me. Thank you so much, and yeah.
Thank you very much, Kit. You see, there is a lot of details, a lot of information, a lot of important information. There is a black and the white part, and then there are the gray areas. I think as well that the average at one point are important to get to the next step of the really detailed black and white. And with the data, of course, the important part is also the certifications and really putting a stamp and on it. So last but not least, of course, Thomas Hennion, Operational Director of France from SOCOTEC, and he will tell us a little bit about the certification process in the mice sector and the perspective and insights on that.
Thank you, Esra. Hello, everyone. So yes, I'm Thomas Hennion from SOCOTEC. SOCOTEC is a testing, inspection, and certification company, French originally, but now at more than 60% international in Europe, but also in Asia. We operate in more than 26 countries, and so we are 11,000 people, mainly experts in assessment, technician, and engineer. I'm representing today the branch of certification, so we have a bit more than 15,000 clients worldwide, 200 employees, and we run about 40 certification under 6 accreditation. And recently we became member of the GSTC to promote recognized standards certification. So as Randy said yesterday, this is the words, not the way we certify. But we offer certification. Here in an example of an hotel chain certificate, B&B, who worked with us to certify more than 477 hotels. And also, I would like to mention that now in France, there is the stars ranking system. And now they have added since last year some criteria about CSR. So those certification and those effort made by BNB is helping them to answer to those new public criteria. I took an example of a client of SOCOTEC. I like this because everybody knows this event. And I took a photo of, I localized a bit my presentation because he's Turkish, right? Right. So I did this a bit local. So we are working with the Festival de Cannes, in fact, with this organization. And we have, three missions. So we are not certifying the buildings, we are certifying the company who is running the business in this area. And you have three missions. To run, of course, this Festival de Cannes once a year. Also to promote the tourism in the city and organize all the corporate events in the city. So they have three main missions. Why they came to certification? Why they would like to go in that sustainability project? First, we should never forget that sustainability, to have sustainability effort, you need to have a sustainable business. So it's very important that you base your system on experience on your employees, on sustainable knowledge, and this is all about that. Sustainability starts by the fact that you can improve all the time the way you do things. And so they start by doing this. And what we did with them, so first, in the sustainable event certification, there is two approaches. Or you can certify an organization, what sometimes we call a management system. It means the fact that you can repeat organization on different events at different time. Or you can certify an event itself. So then we are looking at the organization of the events only. This is the limited scope. Of course, we are looking how they are asking to the interested party what is important for them, what they should consider in the event organization before, during, and after. And Festival de Cannes did that with their employees and all the suppliers, and they based their action plan on that. They are doing an annual survey with their employees, and they did a large supplier survey because they have more than 500 different suppliers. It was important for them as well because they realized, as I said, the first objective is to have a sustainable business. We were all impacted, especially the event sector during the pandemic. They were. And by this experience, they found very difficult to restart the activities, to know what to do in case of, I hope it won't happen anymore, but why not? In this case, what is my crisis plan? What is my reaction? What I'm communicating to my suppliers? How I can even compensate my loss in terms of revenue? So all this was included in their plan. And our job as a certification body is to ask them, and you can find clear principle of the management system that you can have for quality, environment, and health and safety, top management commitment, resources and qualification. Does my employees and even the person I employ for the events itself, are they local? Are they well trained? Are they did they have an awareness about my efforts in terms of awareness? Very important. And also the indicators. My colleagues talk much better about that, or the measurement on environment topics, but not only. And of course, we need to, as you see the little picture on the top right, it should be a continuous improvement. We plan, we do, we check, we act. And this is like that an event and a business is becoming more sustainable. And last but not least, I'm not promoting any standards. And I'm very keen that GSTC starts to look at criteria for this specific area. Because for many years, I worked for a a company, a British company, who has created the standards for the London Olympic Games. It was the ISO 2012-1. It was mentioned a bit earlier. 10 years ago, so 11 now, and look at the landscape. The numbers, I will give you some numbers, but you can see after 11 years, there's not so much company who are engaged with the certification process. There is many in France, because we did a lot of conference events, going on the field, talking with the events industry, and from a small company doing carpets to large company organizing events in more than 10 or 15 destinations. So my message here is we should learn from that. It was publicly, each Olympic Games from since the London has been certified according to that standard. They have engaged suppliers around them. For Paris next year, you have to be certified to engage a process to be suppliers of the Olympic Games. So we need that kind of support from the top level, but also this is our job to go and convince even small organizations. I told you I have clients, there are 5. And it's even more important to have such a system in place. So very keen to work with GSTC to make those criteria more relevant for the industry, because ISO, you know, this is a framework. It's not enough precise, and that's why GSTC is very important looking at that to talk in the same vocabulary of the sector we are talking with. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. We see a lot of needs as well in that way to communicate the importance of certifications in the industry. And with your last slide, I will have directly following a question, which I will end with you with the experience of the other panelists as well. Thank you very much, first of all, for everybody and their presentations and their insights. And you see how the panelists' different perspectives and their different insights and professions are influencing the sector in different ways. You have this destination, you have the organizers, you have the data and the certification, which is at the end, if we put the client into it as well, the circle of the sustainable kind of approach in most ways. So getting directly into the questions I want to ask, I look at Slido, but nothing came yet. But if you have any questions, please send them through. So here, I will see, but I will go from here. So my question was, and I will put it there, what are the experience in communicating the importance of the sustainable actions of all your different parts and the return of the stakeholders or the partners you have. As said, you will have all your different perspectives in that way, and I would like to maybe everybody gives shortly comment to it. As said, in France there are a lot of certifications, as I said, and that's a huge difference to the other destinations. But at the end, we would maybe a little bit more into your experience, what maybe there could be the difference that everybody is approaching it. And let's start with the destination, Sandra.
Yeah, it's difficult. So it depends on which side do you look. So we have, if it comes to the supplier side, we have, of course, a lot of small companies with sometimes a few people working for. So if you come with an external audit and a certification, so it seems much too far for them often. So there are some borders to go and to jump over. If it comes to the hotel chains, it's a slightly different topic because they will tell you that they have all chain programs and they don't need, in our case, a regional, local certification to add on. So there are borders to jump through also. But on the other hand, we feel that after a while, so after years now of communication, all the efforts an external audit and certification brings to them, that there's a mind shift, and especially during the last years, we feel that regulations are pushing it, and the laws, of course, are changing in the European Union. So that give us a push, and we see us in our certification numbers, so they are rising. When we started in the beginning, we thought, okay, it's free for all of them, and they must be run through it, but they didn't. So we thought they 50 numbers companies coming with us and do the certification in the first year, but now, after years and years, we are now at the 55 partners, sustainable partners. So we have some challenges in case of certification to do, but we are on a good way.
So I think when it comes to communicating to customers and also to attendees, I think that there are some sort of simple things that we always look at doing. So first of all, from the customer side, we ask them to think about, as a company, what are their supplier requirements, and how does that then roll out into their event suppliers? So do they ask their suppliers generally to be aligned with science-based targets as an extreme example, but various other iterations, and so how can they apply that then to their event supply chain? As Sandra already said, that can be quite daunting. So then we ask them to start looking at, well, what are your key requirements then? If we break it down, what's most important to you and your company in terms of what you're trying to deliver? And it comes down to having a conversation and starting off at least just talking about it, and then then you get into looking at certification, but that's a bit further down the line. We also think that there's a huge value in kind of communicating sustainability to event delegates, and so what we try and do is kind of always have a slot in an event app on sustainability where you can communicate the sustainability credentials of the venue or any specific actions that have been taken. You can either ask for feedback as well, so that attendees can kind of play a role in that as well, and then kind of stretch out to what you see out in the venues themselves and the halls and that kind of thing. So kind of, again, this kind of step-by-step approach, but constant communication, I think, is really key to getting started.
So I'm going to answer the second part of your question, which is the why should you do it? Because we get asked this a lot, and it's a really important question. I think everyone in this room, when you look back on 2023 and GSTC, the thing you're most likely to remember is this event. You'll probably talk to GSTC lots over the course of this year and read lots of emails, maybe go to some of their courses and so forth, and that's all great. But ultimately, this is most likely your biggest interaction. And that is so true for most organizations. Their outward-facing interaction with so many of their customers, so many of their suppliers, their investors, will be their MICE program. And so displaying sustainability there, if you're a company that's committed to being sustainable, displaying sustainability at that point of interaction is probably the most important place for you to really show that you are being sustainable. And customers care about it. In both millennials and Gen Z say that the climate crisis is the biggest issue of their generation. 56% of people say they're more likely to attend an event that is sustainable. So I think it's incredibly important. And yeah, that's the why.
That's true. Thank you. Your reports, and now maybe a little bit more what your experiences in terms that there's.
Okay. When I look back at our clients are engaged in that certification process or sustainability process, it is coming from the clients. And the clients, most of the time, this is large event organizer. Now, they do communicate because they did the effort to comply with this expectation. And most of the time, you present your company first. In a tender, when you answer to a corporate events tender for a large company, you are explaining who you are, how many people you are. But if you first communicate about what I did, look, in the last 2 years, I have implemented that, I have appointed someone who has already another task to do, to look at this. I did a survey to all my clients and my customer. So this communication, it's, because we know that certification is not the most time consuming. This is the preparation. This is all what you have to do before to have a certification body coming to your premises or to your events. So communication is about that, and your client should know that it was an investment in time, investment in people, and that it is really included in the vision of the company.
I think that's a really important point to do, and the reason why I didn't have any Slido questions was because I saw the Slido of the room next to us with some cruise questions, but we have some really good questions, and the most voted one is at the moment, of course, which is also a little bit in connection with the questions you have answered now. How would you promote sustainability in events to a customer who has never thought of the sustainability aspect in their events so far? So you have the parts, as you said, you have a red line, which we see with every partner. So you have a checklist, and a long checklist sometimes, which is a lot of preparation time, and a lot of people are sometimes afraid that data is not there really, or that it's time consuming, or it's budget related. But then there is the first contact for people who are really not aware of the sustainability aspect so far. So what is your insight there, maybe in terms of data, first of all? What data is important to underground and give the information of the sustainability, and then we can go into how to communicate a destination with people that didn't, or the events that didn't look into sustainability yet.
That's why we make our marketing with that as well, to activate and to activate and inform our customers and clients. So we are on trade shows, we put the topic everywhere, and we offer consultancy. Really like it, just to make it easier for our clients to come into our more sustainable event world, and that's working really well. And we have these sustainable guidelines, but of course you are not, you don't have to choose every point on this guideline. If I take the example of the sustainable event scorecard, this is really a scorecard where you get points, on how much this action is helping in case of sustainability. So there are 900 points you can receive it all, but if you have 300, then you are successful in the sustainable event planning. So what we tell the customers is that you don't have to do it 100% at all level, so just start. And there are so many parts of actions you could take that it's easy to find for you the right sustainable action. So, and if we start to give example, we try to give through examples. Our advice is to put in every action field a sustainable option to choose. So for the clients, for our clients, but also of course for the attendees of the events. So, and if you communicate that to the clients, so there's often something going on, and it's working well.
So, so in terms of the question, it's interesting, right? When you organize an event, the most important thing to you as an event organizer is, will my attendees enjoy the event, or will they think it's a great event, right? Like that is your goal, is to make your attendees satisfied that they have come to your event. And so when you're trying to promote sustainability to a customer who maybe hasn't thought about sustainability, doesn't care about it, you really have to understand, well, what do their customers care about? And it's going to be different for every event. You know, if I was going to a brand that's trying to sell to millennials, then fine, I'll just talk about what their customers care about, which is the climate crisis, and hopefully the event organizer understands that, yeah, it's important to be sustainable. If I was to talk to someone that organizes events for oil and gas, which one of our clients do, then actually it becomes about regulation, it becomes about public perception, it becomes about making sure that they, you know, are trying to clean up their image. So there is normally a driving force for everyone to get behind sustainability. I'm a big believer that if the world is more sustainable, it's just going to be great for the world's economic outlook in general. We're all going to live healthier lives. It's just going to be a great all-round thing. So find how that is good for every company in that chain and remind them about it. And that's how I think you can get the event organizers on board with sustainability and promote it to them.
So we have a lot of questions. The
Can I
audience.
can I add a point to that?
Sure,
I think
of course.
just building on what Kit said, I think there's also showing them what their competitors are doing and benchmarking, but you know, there's a lot of interest out there in doing things better, and so sort of showing a customer where they are in their journey, but also what their competitors are doing can be quite a driving force as well.
Exactly, and please always, you will get into the contact, and there will go directly. In terms of maybe Olivia, in terms of the organizer part, we have two questions. For example, how we can address disability or food and beverage strategies into the MICE sustainability program. What are there any strategies or any regulations as an organizer you have in your sustainability approach?
So from the disability inclusion side, it depends where you are in the world. There are different regulations that venues have to comply with. I think that the way we approach this with our customers is along the lines of sustainability in general. We have a conversation, we ask them what their requirements are, and then we work from there. With disability, there are more standards out there, and it's in many ways easier to define the sustainability. So finding the right suppliers is less challenging. But again, yeah, it's about kind of knowing what their requirements are and thinking about it sort of throughout the event cycle. So, you know, what are you doing pre-event if it's the kind of event where you have a website for a registration website? So how do you make that accessible through to kind of physical aspects of the event and that kind of thing? From the food strategy side, I mean, it's interesting. I've been to a lot of sustainability events since I started travelling again, kind of middle of last year, and a lot of them are now vegan, plant-based. In fact, the vast majority are plant-based. So that's clearly a trend, and that's an approach that people are taking. There's a lot of talk about seasonal and local produce. I think there are some interesting conversations to be had about the benefits of both of those. So everyone talks about local. Is local always best? Sometimes seasonal is better. You know, so that it's not cut and dried, to be honest, when it comes to food sourcing. Yeah.
Generally, also, of course, it depends always on the geographical side as well,
Exactly.
on the local side, and also how the event wants to communicate the local cuisine or the local culture in that way. And here we have a direct question at Sandra. Is the €25 attendee a punctual or permanent long-term incentive? Did you measure its impact in the number of companies opting now for the sustainable buy? Support is an important point, of course, in that way from destinations. Question,
Yeah, I would like to say that it's going on over the years, but we are funded from year to year and to next year again. So We started 21, and so we are hopeful that it's going on next year again, but we are not sure yet. So, yeah.
So, generally, I'm looking through the questions. They are really direct questions, really detailed questions, which is really great, which shows that the audience listened really to all the presentations in details and want to have more information. Here's the question: how can event organizers bridge gaps in data collection to monitor carbon footprint of an event? And I think that goes to you, kids.
How do they bridge the gaps? Yeah, it's difficult, right? It's all about communication. You just have to talk to your suppliers as often as possible. You have to push them, and sometimes you have to vote with your feet. Sometimes sorry, that's an idiom which I realise might not translate well, but sometimes you shouldn't spend money with suppliers that are not going to be sustainable. So if a hotel says, yeah, we're really sustainable, but then they can't tell you anything about their sustainability program or what they're doing, maybe consider not going with them. And that's one of the best ways you can demonstrate to them that they should be prioritizing sustainability. Outside of that, it's about trying to find reliable, translatable data sources. So often, if you're organising an incentive trip and you're taking a group of people to a ski resort, the carbon emissions of every ski resort are completely different. But you're unlikely actually to find out the carbon emissions of a specific ski resort. So the next thing you should do is search, okay, what's the in general, the average emissions of a ski resort, and use that number and reflect that when you run this trip next year, you should be trying to source a more accurate number direct from a resort. And again, this is an opportunity for you to spend money with that resort that's going to be more sustainable. Choose a really specific example. But yeah, I mean, it is hard, and it's still early days for mice, right? It really is. And that's also an opportunity, though, to be at the forefront of this and say where the gaps are, make them part of your action plan, your net zero plan, to fill in those gaps as you move forwards. You don't have to do everything today. In fact, if you try and do everything today, you're probably going to fail. And so choose the bits you can do, set up a plan, see it as a 10, 15-year horizon to get to net zero, hopefully as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And building up on that, I will take the next question. And I think, Thomas, that is the best one for you. What kind of impact do you believe globally recognized MICE sustainability standards will have on the industry, together with your experience as well as with the GSTC standards coming? Where do you see the industry going? Let's say the black and the gray areas become less and less, and how the standardization will influence the industry.
So for me, the standardization, and this is something very important, is we have different local regulations. So you can standardize a way to implement those conformity to those regulations, but it's very important that to look at the standards, you need to look at the local standards. And most of the time, if you look at your interested party, this is your government. And I mean the importance of the presence of the Minister of Turkey is that they are very committed in that, and they will set the standards in a way. So then it's to the industry of certification and consulting and MICE industry to adapt this, maybe to go beyond those standards. But we are lucky that in such country, and sorry to come back on my country, but why France is so well certified in terms of ISO, others. There's many labels and other certification, because the government is behind that. They organized the COP 21. They are very proud of the objectives set during these conferences. They organized the G7 conference in Biarritz in France according to those standards. So you know they are pushing the industry. And it's very good that the Turkey ministry and organization like TGA are behind that. This is for me the point.
Thank you very much in that part, but then you look for a little bit more the back, like the support from the top to the details. Like, of course, the national program, the first time in the world for a national-wide sustainability program, with Türkiye and GSTC as a from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism in cooperation with TGA. National-wide program, and it's a certification. It comes back to the checklists and the certification and the auditing. So I understand that you say in terms of standardization, it's important that there is really like also a push and a little bit kind of you have to and must to and go to from there to have really the information on a not mandatory, but like on a standardized like more valuable version. Is that what you think is the reason that it's maybe in France more certificated?
Again, this is a business need.
At the end.
Sorry, but maybe the people now are taking care more about water, about energy, for money reason as well. We just had a strong inflation worldwide. I mean, this is a strong push for the sustainability adoption as well. And so, coming back to a previous question, like how to communicate to someone who doesn't care or never heard about sustainability, talk about money.
At the end, wine sector is business, and of course, everybody, and sustainability is a budget-related version and point. Which of course influences all the event budgets, but of course the value coming out of sustainable events in terms of the future, in terms of the new generation, in terms of the destinations and the organizers getting together and getting back the sector in a better level of sharing knowledge, which is part of the MICE industry, what is on the stage, the knowledge. Thank you very much, first of all, and that way we are getting close to the end. So there, one more question I would ask in terms which we had before and talked between us. What do you think, during your experience of the past few years, are the easy wins that you had, which are maybe the easy first steps which can be taken on this journey onto the sustainable path for more sustainable MICE events, either in a more broad way or in a more personal way, because it's a mindset, it's not just the doing and the action, it's really changing the daily habit, personal as well as business-wise and organizational-wise. And there I would like to have your final comments and your final inputs there.
Yeah, as I said, walk the talk and engage your stakeholders. That would be my quick win. Yeah, and then we can win a lot.
I think from an event level perspective, one of the quickest wins you can do is look at what you don't need and make sure that you take that out of the event. That will immediately help you reduce waste or reduce impact. So take out what you don't need.
So mine's connected to that, which is if you do have waste, that's often something you as an event planner can control. It's not strictly down to a venue. So if you know you're going to have lots of food waste, working with a local food bank to donate that food is such an easy way. They're often very grateful. They'll pick up the food in many cases, particularly major cities. In the UK, there's a charity, I imagine there's probably lots of these in lots of countries, but there's a charity that specifically deals with event waste, and they'll pick up any resellable waste and then give it to other charities that might need it. So I think often one of the easiest things to do is start at the end of the chain almost, start with your waste and work backwards, because you can control that to an extent.
And something I said earlier that we are talking a lot of product, of environment mainly, but sustainability is again about people, your people, you first, but also the people you are working with. So it's very important that starting point, because without this energy from the people around you, you would not achieve anything. So do it for you, do it for the regulation, do it for the business, do it for the planet. This is many good reasons, right?
Exactly. So with that, our Sustainable Mice session comes to an end. I want to thank every one of you. It was a really interesting information, discussion, and insights. We will have the GSCC Mice workshop tomorrow in the afternoon. So building what comes out of all these topics and insights all together. So I would invite you to look at the program for tomorrow afternoon on the workshop to get on hands-on all together and shape the mice sector how with standards, with insights, with the new generation and individually for the future. So thank you very much.